Hey everyone, it's Dr. Ramani. I think I'm going to be talking about something today a lot of you can relate to. Narcissistic relationship ends. I don't even know. It doesn't matter who ends it. And you're still struggling. But they move on, and they move on fast. And they're living their best life. Let's talk about coping with that. It can seem that narcissistic people are like cats. And not only do they always land on their feet, they manage to make sure that the rest of us tumble into a faceplant and need a minute to deprogram from the nightmare we just emerged from. And that was not a diss on cats. You know I love cats. Sorry, cats. But the narcissistic person in the relationship with you, they didn't feel deeply. And they don't feel deeply. So it's really easy for narcissistic people to quickly jump into the next thing. Keep in mind, too, that for narcissistic folks, that when they enter a new relationship, it's a formula. It's love bomb, devalue, discard, hoover every time. For healthy folks, when we enter new relationships, each time may feel a little different because we meet the other person where they are at. We account for context. The narcissistic person approaches a new relationship with a bag of tricks. The same bag of tricks. The same bag of tricks every time. They have the same lines, the same text messages, the same wine and dine, the same little tactics they use each time. It's like going to a chain restaurant. No matter where you go, the menu is the same, the decor is the same, the uniforms are the same. They do only one thing. And it's the same for the narcissistic folks. Their love bomb tactics play out similarly with each new person they meet. And they need supply. The narcissistic person is forever hunting, like a bear set to go into hibernation. They need new admiration, a lot of it, new people. So when they find a new person, boom, they are in it. Let's focus on you first. Once upon a time, what I'm talking about wasn't nearly as robust a conversation. I grew up pre-social media and I grew up pre-internet. So when I was young and dating, these things didn't exist. So unless you were like CSI, you weren't going to be able to figure out what your ex was up to unless you lived in a really small town or they started dating within the same circles that you were in. Again, you'd have had to become a stalker and follow them home from work or something to figure out where they are and who they were with and what they were doing. And actually, all of that, I think, once upon a time was better for survivors of these relationships. Because unless you had a lot of time on your hands and were more than a little obsessive, you wouldn't have had the time, resource, or fear of getting caught that all would come together. And basically what would happen is instead of becoming a stalker or trying to figure it out, you'd cry it out and let it go. In the modern age, the narcissistic move on has become a horrifying experience. And if you are at all clever on social media, you can quite easily be a detective. You can sit down and figure out who they're talking with, who they're following, where their pictures were taken, where they are, and then once they really go all in on moving forward with someone, they have no shame. They pose their little loved up pictures, and in some cases it'll make you nauseous. Because it's like someone is now living in your love-bombed life from the past. It literally feels like Black Mirror. And you have basically, when you start living in that world of looking at the narcissist who's moved on, you've put the brakes on your healing. Because each moment you spend looking at the narcissistic person's new life and researching who the replacement is, you are actually continuing to give them bandwidth and giving it all to them and not yourself. Listen, bandwidth is finite, and so if you're giving 90% of it to them, there's almost none left out. And when you do that, you miss out on the absolutely precious time that you need towards your own healing. All the stuff that I say on this channel repeatedly, that narcissistic folks have no capacity for deep intimacy, they're superficial, it works, any relationship works as long as it works for them, and it feels like a novelty. But when real life happens, the cracks will show in their personality, and the other person will go through what you did. And the narcissistic person will remain entitled, unempathic, gaslighty, manipulative, dismissive. None of that changes. And then you'll stop watching this channel and switch over to folks who may teach you how to get back at them or how to get revenge. This part of grief and healing is awful because there's no pushing a fast forward button on it. While they are love bombing someone else, you go back to remembering how that felt for you. You know how seductive it was. You know how they were able to make you feel like the center of their universe, and you fell for it. So of course someone else is going to fall for it. And they'll have that feeling that once upon a time you did, when you believed, when you really believed, and you know with a feeling, a pit of dread in your stomach, that there is no feeling like it in the world. Even though you now know it was all BS, while it was happening, and before you knew, that there was no feeling like it in the world. And it feels like they are winning because they aren't even thinking about you. They have their new supply. They don't think there is a single thing that they did wrong. They may even be congratulating themselves and thinking how they did so great and moving forward into their new love story and how they deserve all the happiness in the world. How do you cope when the narcissist moves on, especially when they move on really fast? It may not even be what we would call coping at this phase. I think it might make more sense to call it suffering. It will be all of the many phases and aspects of grief, anger and denial, and more anger and tears and confusion and anxiety and self-blame and more self-blame. And maybe if I just went along with everything, they would still be with me and someone else wouldn't be love-bombed. And then you get lost in the injustice of it all, and then there's more anger. Pick a negative emotion, and you will feel it. And I do hope that you lift your head long enough to write down all the awful things that happened in the relationship, or have a friend or two that can help you with that. Since during this phase, when the narcissistic person first moves on, you don't remember it, since you're caught in an endless loop of rumination and euphoric recall. When it comes to coping in these circumstances, time is your friend, because yes, every time with more time it gets easier. But it can feel like a lifetime. Having a routine helps too, something to get you going out of bed, work, caregiving, walking a dog, something. Then there's other people and talking it out, and therapy can be very helpful here too. Paying attention to the things in life that are now easier with them gone can also be useful. But that's hard at this stage. It takes more discipline than just about anything, but if you can do this, click out of social media for a while, cancel it if you have to. But seeing their new life is just going to take you back to zero every single day. And be gentle with yourself. Sweatpants, ice cream for breakfast, sleeping in, maybe a few days off, missing out and skipping out of your friends' get-together, it's okay. I actually don't think we treat broken hearts with the gravitas and the seriousness they deserve. If someone's sick, we say, oh, definitely stay home. Hell, if someone has an episode of depression, sometimes people will cut slack. But we tend to minimize broken hearts, and that's not right. A broken heart is an acute pain, and people need a minute. And a broken heart from a narcissistic relationship is exponentially worse. It will get better. Yes, you will ruminate for a long time, but someday you'll hear that the cracks are showing in their new situation, if it even lasts. And honestly, by the time those cracks start showing, you may be past it. The day will come, and it will come, and you'll get to the end of that day, and you'll realize you didn't think about them once. But it's a bumpy and treacherous and rumination and regret-soaked road to get there. And as you get some distance from it, you will recognize that in a weird way, as you watch the new person be love-bombed, it was like watching a new recruit get pulled into a cult. I don't know if any of you have ever tried to stop someone in the early months of a cult entry process, but good luck with that. You may even want to keep them from that culty place. And you know that scene you've seen in a movie when the person tells the person not to join the evil group, and the person joining the evil group tells the person who's trying to stop them that they're crazy? That's kind of how they're going to approach it. I know you might even want to warn this person, new person going into the relationship with the narcissist. It might even feel morally right, a duty to warn them, but they aren't going to listen. Cults and narcissists are both very alluring in the beginning, and everyone thinks it will be different for them. I can promise you this, it won't. And while early on you just wanted to blow it up, you recognize that the disgusting part of this whole narcissism thing is that the narcissistic people, like all cult leaders, have a bottomless pit of people to draw from. People out there who don't get it, who don't understand it, who don't want to get it, who don't want to understand it, and who will be ultimately wrecked by it too. The narcissistic tactics work really well. It's not your job to rescue the new person. Let them fall into the pit and get themselves out. We all learn to ride our bikes by falling a few times. It's very similar. I have tried to stop people before they get in. But I get some speech about how I'm mean and dark and don't understand true love. Those things may be true, but in this case, I was trying to help them. I always know that these folks will come back around with time and that they had to learn on their own by experience. Listen, you can get more data about the new coffee shop down the street on Yelp or which refrigerator is best or the best plumber in town by looking at ratings. We don't have this sort of publicly sourced rating system for people. I don't know that I buy the party line that these ratings wouldn't be valid because everyone will have such a different experience. Imagine if we could read the reviews about narcissistic people. Maybe they'd say things like, the first 3 months were magical, and then they disappeared and made me feel crazy when I wanted more intimacy. With narcissism, everyone doesn't have a different experience. Everyone will ultimately get burned. Before crowdsourced ratings, we ate at the crappy restaurant and got sick and could only tell our friends because there was no rating place. Or we got scammed by that bad plumber, or we bought a fridge and wasted money. Sadly, with narcissistic folks, the new supply will just need to get hurt. Experience is a harsh but effective teacher. And let's face it, and maybe all of you are better people than me, but there is a little bit of schadenfreude there too, and that's okay. They can keep posting their "I found my true love because I made my intention known to the universe" Instagram posts, high horses. Ultimately, they're going to get back into the mud with the rest of us. It takes time to heal. It takes time, especially when the narcissistic person is able to move on so quickly. It will get better, just maybe not today. Hang in there. I know you won. You don't see checkmate yet, but it's coming. And thanks for watching all the way through. I wanted to take a second to speak to any therapists, coaches, or therapists in training who might be watching and are interested in working with clients experiencing narcissistic abuse. I am launching a program in January of next year that will be focusing on how to support clients healing from narcissistic abuse. See the link in the video description. And thanks again.